Hello, welcome to the art room. Miss Larrabee here, on with our next project for this week. This week we're going to be starting a project. This is part 1 of 2. I like to call this project Line on a Line on a Line. Here's what it's going to look like at the end of part 2. We're going to be making a sculpture out of lines. Kind of cool, huh? We'll talk more about that in part 2. This week, we're going to be making the paper that we're going to use. And here's an example. What you need is one plain sheet of paper and your crayons. Or if you want to choose another coloring supply, that's just fine. This week, we're going to be talking a little bit more about line. If you have your sample sheet from last week, your practice sheet, go ahead and grab that out too and set it over to the side. That way you can refer back to it. Remember, you can pause the video at any time to get a supply if you need it or to finish a part before we move on. I'm gonna roll my crayons over here. I like to bring them out so I can see all my colors, but some people like to keep them in the box. All right, we're gonna have our paper vertical. That means up and down, just like in our song. And the first thing we're gonna do is simply make a line. Now we're gonna be filling our paper with lines, kind of like this one. So we're gonna do a special line and we're gonna leave a little space. So we're gonna start at the very top today. And the first thing I want you to do is just simply draw a line. Remember, a line is a point moving through space. So you choose which one of these lines from your practice paper you want to draw. I'm going to start with a wavy line. And then we're going to go back and we're going to add more to our line. We talked just a little bit about all these different kind of lines, but let me show you something else that's also considered a line. A line is a point moving through space. What did I just draw? Let me hear you guys say it. I drew a circle, right? A point moving through space. Shapes are made of lines. And when we put lines together and we repeat them, we call it a pattern. So we're using lines to create shapes and pattern. Go ahead and you can color in a little. For these first few, maybe you want to follow along with me. We can do something similar. And then we'll have time for you to get creative and make up your own patterns. All right, grab another color. Let's make a different line. I'm going to do a zigzag. Again, you could choose something else from our lines here if you see a different line that you want to try. This time, I'm going to repeat the line to make a pattern. So the first time I added a shape to make a pattern, this time I'm just repeating the line. But because it's repeated in an orderly fashion, I've made a pattern. Here's kind of a fun thing. I'm going to go back in the middle with a different color and repeat the pattern again. I'm adding some color to my line and my pattern. All right. All right, let's grab another color and let's try something different. I'm going to try I call this a curlicue. A loopy line, and then I'm going to add to this line a little dash. Just going to trace around the same. Some days when I do art, I just have so many ideas. I could just keep going with creativity. And some days when I sit down to do art, I just can't hardly think of a single idea, and that's okay. We make the best of wherever we find ourselves that day, right? So maybe you're doing this and you're thinking, I have all these ideas. I want to try it on my own. Go ahead, work along with me, listen to what I'm saying, but you create your own pattern in line. And if you're thinking, I'm going to stick with Miss Larrabee, that's just fine too. All right, I'm going to make this kind of wavy line. It almost looks like a cursive S to me. For all of these, we started with a line and we're adding to it with shapes or other lines. I think for this one, I'm going to just simply fill in the spaces that are left. I'm going to fill in the spaces with color. And I think I might do it on the top as well. There's a little more space on the top actually. Totally changes the look of this pattern, doesn't it? You can see my work surface has a little bit of texture to it. The texture is showing through. This kind of adds to it, I guess. All right, so this time we're going to add a third element. So we've been using kind of two colors, two elements. This time we're going to go with a third element. I'm going to add a little, this is kind of a yellowy green color, a dot to each one. This is adding layers. Just means that we're adding a next part. We're doing the same pattern, but we're adding to it each time. We're layering it kind of like you might layer icing on a cake, just to add a little bit more to the pattern. Let's see what we could do with layers this time. Oh, I have an idea. I'm going to take a different color. We've been making lines and then adding pattern to them. This time we're going to use the lines to make a pattern. Here's what I mean by that. I'm going to make a dash line and then I'm going to draw a shape. Why don't you do this along with me? You can choose what shape you draw. I'm using a square, so I'm making a dash and a square, a dash and a square. Sometimes it's helpful to say your pattern out loud so you remember what it's going to be. Dash, square, dash, square, dash, square. So I've used line and shape to make a pattern. I'm going to color this in. And then we're going to add another layer to our pattern. I'm going to pick a different color and I'm going to add another layer. Oh, that just really makes that whole pattern, it changes the look of it and it makes it brighter, I think. And I've added the green layer and a red layer. I'm going to come back and add one more layer. Going around my square. So I've added 3 layers of color to my design. There we go. All right, let's do another one together. Here's kind of a fun one. I'm just going to make a small zigzag across my paper. Remember, you can be making the same pattern that I'm making, or you can be using this as an idea to make your own pattern. Let's just keep working together to fill our page. Just as a reminder, we're going to be cutting these next week. Actually, I haven't told you that yet, but we'll be cutting these. If your patterns bump into each other, that is totally fine. But I'm leaving a little space in between mine, knowing that I'm going to cut them apart next week. I've added 3 layers. I'm actually going to add a 4th layer to this one. One more layer of color here. Oh, it's so exciting to see them all start to come together. All right, let's try this together. Let's do one more as a group. This one's going to be shapes again. So I want you to think of 2 shapes that you enjoy drawing. We made a pattern that went dash, square, dash, square, dash, square. This time we're going to switch it up a little. I'm going to make a triangle, and then a circle. My pattern is 2 triangles, 1 circle, 2 triangles, 1 circle. Some people call this an AAB pattern. 2 triangles, 1 circle. It might be helpful to say it out loud. 2 triangles, 1 circle. 2 triangles. What comes next? 1 circle. All right, and then we would go back in and add our color. All right, let's add another layer of color. Add a little blue in my circle. And a final layer. I feel like I want something bright that really just pops against this purple. How about a bright blue? Different colors together, it almost makes them look like they have a light behind them. They glow a little. All right, I think we have room for maybe 2 more lines. Here's one that I really like. It's kind of fun. I like making these little X's. Kind of alternate them. I do one up top, one down low. Up top, down low. I'm gonna go all the way across my paper like this. And it's okay, sometimes I get a little off my pattern. It's okay, high, low, high, low, high, low. All right, and then I'm gonna go back again and add a second layer to my pattern. Think about different ways you could add this idea of layering maybe to some artwork you already do. If you enjoy coloring, think about how you could add layer. Maybe not just color one section green, but how could you color it maybe 2 different colors of green? Whoops, I'm knocking things over. All right, I'm gonna add a bright color in here for my 3rd layer. A line through the middle, and then maybe even a longer line on the top and bottom. I think I have space for one more. Let's see, I'm gonna do this wavy line again that we did at the top, but I'm gonna do it closer together, more waves, and I'm gonna simply repeat this shape, or this line, a couple of times with similar colors, and then I'm gonna go back over the top with a diagonal line this time. Diagonal, side to side, up and down, and diagonal. Those are different directions, right? All right, there we have it. We've added 3 layers to these, but these first ones we did only had 2 layers. So maybe you could think of something to go back and add a 3rd layer. I think to mine, I'll just highlight this curve, go back and add a little bit more layering to these at the top. But this is going to be the paper we use next week. So please put it carefully into your art portfolio. And for part 2, we're going to be using this paper. I'll show you this again to make our sculpture. See how I have my lines and my patterns here? Next project, we'll talk about this in part 2. One thing that you might want to find for part 2 is some heavier paper. This is actually, see if I can do it, an oatmeal box. Maybe you have a cereal box at your house or granola box, even some hard paper, harder weight paper, some cardstock or construction paper, just something that's a little heavier than regular paper for next part of this project. It's not a necessity. You could do it on paper, but it just gives it a little bit more strength to hold up our sculpture. All right, so for next week, if you have a chance, try to find a little piece of maybe a cereal box or some construction paper. We'll see you back here. Keep your artwork in a safe place, and I will see you in part 2.